Captain Daewon Kim stood in the massive cargo bay of Orbital Station Nexus 7, watching his team unload the metal crates from Earth's transport shuttle. The station was enormous, bigger than any human structure ever built. Its walls gleamed with strange metals that seemed to shift colors in the light. Alien symbols covered every surface, and the air had a faint smell of ozone, mixed with something sweet that Daewon couldn't identify. Around him, dozens of alien species moved through the bay. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated without any visible support. A few slithered across the floor on multiple tentacles. Daewon had seen the briefing files, but seeing them in person was different. These beings had traveled between stars for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Lieutenant Hannah Park approached him with a data pad in her hands. She was young but capable, one of Earth's best weapons specialists. "Sir, all equipment has been unloaded. 5 crates total. The aliens are waiting in the observation hall." Daewon nodded. "How are they acting?" Hannah smiled slightly. "Curious, mostly. Some of them keep pointing at our gear and laughing." "Laughing?" "Yes, sir. I heard one of them call our rifles cute metal sticks." Daewon sighed. This wasn't unexpected. When Earth had finally developed faster-than-light travel 6 months ago, humanity had burst into a galaxy full of advanced civilizations. The Galactic Confederation controlled most of known space. They had energy weapons that could vaporize mountains. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days. Their medical technology could cure nearly any disease, and they thought humans were primitives. "Let them laugh," Daewon said. "We'll show them what these cute metal sticks can do." They moved the crates through the station's corridors. The ceiling was so high above that Daewon could barely see it. Holographic signs floated in the air, showing directions in dozens of languages. Human English was at the very bottom of each sign, added just last week. The observation hall was a massive amphitheater carved from something that looked like black glass. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows that surrounded a central demonstration floor. Daewon could feel their eyes on him as he entered. Some looked curious. Many looked amused. A few appeared bored. At the highest point of the amphitheater sat the Confederation Council. Admiral Velthar dominated the center position. He was Caldraxian, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. His body was covered in dark blue scales that reflected light like mirrors. 4 arms hung from his massive torso, each ending in 3-fingered hands. His eyes were large and golden with vertical pupils like a cat. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the hall without any visible microphone. "Humans," Velthar said, and the word sounded almost like an insult. "We welcome you to this demonstration. The Confederation requires all new species to show their military capabilities. This allows us to determine what role you might play in galactic defense. Please, show us what Earth has brought." Daewon walked to the center of the floor. The surface beneath his boots was smooth and warm. He gestured to his team and they began opening the crates. The first crate held standard infantry rifles. Hannah lifted one out and held it up for the assembly to see. "This is an automatic rifle," she announced, her voice amplified by translation devices embedded in the station. "It fires solid projectiles at high velocity using controlled chemical explosions." A wave of clicking, chirping, and buzzing filled the hall. The aliens were laughing. Daewon didn't need a translator to understand that. Envoy Thalrix leaned forward from his position near the Admiral. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished silver and too many joints in his arms. "Projectiles?" he asked, his voice dripping with false politeness. "You mean you physically throw objects at your enemies?" "Yes," Daewon said simply. More laughter filled the hall. Admiral Velthar raised one hand and the noise quieted. "Forgive us, Captain. We mean no offense. But your species still uses kinetic weapons? We abandoned such primitive technology 15,000 years ago. Surely you know that energy weapons are far superior." "We've seen your energy weapons in the briefing materials," Daewon replied, keeping his voice calm. "Very impressive. But we've found that our weapons work well for us." "They work against other humans, perhaps," said a voice from the crowd. Daewon turned to see a squat, heavily armored alien in one of the lower rows. "But against modern shielding technology, throwing rocks with explosive powder is useless." "These aren't rocks," Hannah said, but her voice was lost in another wave of laughter. Velthar stood, his massive frame casting a shadow across half the demonstration floor. "Perhaps a demonstration would be educational. For you, Captain Kim." We will show you why the Confederation moved beyond such weapons millennia ago. He gestured with two of his arms. Bring out a standard defensive shield. Type or V-class. Several smaller aliens scurried onto the floor carrying equipment. They assembled a large device in less than a minute. It looked like a curved metal frame about 3 meters tall and wide. Energy flickered between the frame's edges, creating a translucent barrier that hummed with power. This is a Type 4 defensive shield, Velthar explained, his tone now that of a teacher instructing a slow student. It can stop plasma bolts from a battleship cannon. The energy matrix disperses and neutralizes any particle weapon. We use these shields on our ships, our stations, even our personal armor. He gestured at the demonstration floor. Please, Captain, fire your primitive weapons at it. We are curious to see how many shots it takes before you realize the futility. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Daewon heard whispered conversations in dozens of languages. The translation devices in his ear picked up fragments. Waste of time. Embarrassing for them. Should we just give them real weapons? Daewon looked at Hana. She was angry, he could tell, but she kept her face neutral. Good. They'd save that anger for later. We have one more crate to open, Daewon said. By all means, Velthar said, waving dismissively. Corporal Sung-Min Lee moved to the largest crate. He was a big man, muscular and calm, with years of experience in heavy weapons. He opened the crate carefully and began removing pieces. The aliens watched with less interest now. Some were talking among themselves. A few had turned away entirely, already bored. Sung-Min assembled the weapon on the demonstration floor. First came the tripod, which he locked into place. Then the main body of the gun, which he mounted carefully. Finally, he connected the ammunition belt and charged the weapon. The M2 Browning heavy machine gun sat on its tripod like a sleeping predator. Its barrel was thick and dark. The belt of ammunition draped across it like a metallic snake. In the strange light of the alien station, surrounded by technology thousands of years more advanced, the gun looked exactly like what it was. Old, simple, and brutal. What is that? Thalrix asked, squinting at the weapon. Heavy machine gun, Hana replied. Browning M2. We call it Ma Deuce. It's been in service for over 400 years. This brought fresh laughter. 400 years? Someone shouted. You're showing us a museum piece. Velthar raised his hands again, but he was smiling now, showing rows of sharp teeth. Enough. Let the humans have their demonstration. It will be a valuable lesson for them. He settled back into his seat. Proceed, Captain Kim. Fire your ancient weapon at our shield. When you're ready to discuss acquiring modern technology, we have much to offer Earth. Daewon walked over to Sung-Min. The corporal had finished his checks and was ready. Daewon knelt beside him. Full burst? Sung-Min asked quietly. Full burst, Daewon confirmed. He stood and faced the aliens. The observation hall had gone quiet now. Hundreds of eyes watched him with amusement, pity, or curiosity. Permission to engage the target? Daewon asked formally. Granted, Velthar said, still smiling. Show us what Earth has learned about warfare. Daewon nodded to Sung-Min. Corporal Lee, weapons free. Sung-Min's hands found their positions on the gun. His thumbs pressed down on the trigger. The M2 Browning opened fire. The sound hit first. In the enclosed space of the observation hall, the roar of the M2 Browning was like thunder trapped in a bottle. It wasn't the clean hum of energy weapons or the soft whoosh of plasma bolts. This was raw mechanical violence. Each shot was an explosion, and they came so fast they blended into a continuous howl that shook the air itself. The muzzle flash lit up the demonstration floor in rapid bursts of orange and yellow. Spent shell casings flew from the gun in a glittering arc, hitting the floor with metallic clinks that nobody could hear over the weapon's roar. Then the rounds hit the shield. The first bullet struck the energy barrier dead center. For a fraction of a second, the shield rippled with light as its systems tried to disperse the incoming energy. But there was no energy to disperse. There was only mass and momentum, a chunk of metal moving at nearly 3,000 feet per second. The bullet punched through the shield like it wasn't there. The second and third rounds followed before the first had even reached the reinforced barrier behind the shield. They tore through the energy field without slowing, leaving brief tunnels of disrupted light in their wake. All 3 rounds slammed into the test barrier that the aliens had set up behind the shield. This barrier was made of military-grade armor plating, designed to show the humans how well Confederation technology could absorb energy weapons fire. The bullets buried themselves deep into the metal with tremendous cracks that could be heard even over the gun's roar. Sung Min released the trigger. The gun fell silent. The sudden quiet was almost painful. Smoke drifted from the barrel. The smell of burned gunpowder filled the hall, sharp and acrid. More shell casings clinked as they settled on the floor. Nobody in the observation hall made a sound. Admiral Velthar was standing now, all four of his arms gripping the railing in front of him. His golden eyes were wide. His mouth hung open, showing those sharp teeth, but no words came out. Envoy Thalrix had risen from his seat as well. His silver skin had gone pale, almost white. He stared at the shield, at the holes the bullets had punched through the energy field, at the barrier behind it where 3 deep craters marked the impact points. Commander Rixtal, the Caldraxian chief engineer, was the first to move. He practically ran down the steps from his seat, his scales flashing in agitation. He stopped in front of the shield, pulling out scanning devices from his uniform. His hands shook as he ran the scanners over the energy field. "Impossible," he whispered. Then louder, "Impossible. The shield didn't fail. The harmonics are perfect. The energy matrix is stable. It should have stopped anything that—" He trailed off, running the scans again. Hana walked calmly to stand beside Day One. She was smiling now, just a little. "Would you like me to explain, Commander?" Rixtal spun to face her. "Explain? Explain how your primitive weapon bypassed a Type Fu shield. That should be impossible. Our shields can stop plasma cannon fire. They can disperse particle beams. They can even absorb kinetic energy from debris strikes. How did you—" "Your shields disperse energy," Hana said simply. "That's how they work, correct? An incoming particle weapon hits the shield, and the energy matrix spreads that heat and force across the entire field, dissipating it until it's harmless. Yes, but our bullets aren't energy," Hana continued. She picked up one of the spent shell casings from the floor, still hot to the touch. She held it up for everyone to see. They're solid metal. Copper and lead, to be specific. The explosion that fires them is chemical, not nuclear or electromagnetic. The bullet itself is just matter moving very fast in a straight line. Rixtal's scanning devices beeped and chirped in his hands. He looked at the readings, then at the gun, then at the shield. "But that means your shields don't stop physical objects," Day One finished. "They stop energy. Different physics." The observation hall erupted. Hundreds of aliens began talking at once. Some shouted questions. Others argued with their neighbors. A few simply stared at the smoking gun on the demonstration floor with dawning horror on their faces. Velthar raised all 4 arms and roared for silence. The noise died down but slowly. The Admiral's scales had darkened to almost black, which Day One had learned meant extreme agitation in Caldraxians. "Captain Kim," Velthar said, and his voice was no longer condescending. "Are you telling us that all of your weapons work on this principle?" "Most of them," Day One replied. "We have some energy weapons in development, but they're experimental. Our main military focuses on kinetic projectiles and explosives." "Show us more," Velthar commanded. It wasn't a request. Hana nodded to the team. They opened another crate and pulled out a standard infantry rifle. She loaded a magazine smoothly, years of training making her movements automatic. "This is our basic rifle. Every soldier carries one. It fires smaller rounds than the heavy gun, but the principle is the same." She raised the rifle, aimed at a different section of the shield, and fired 3 shots. The cracks were sharper than the machine gun's roar, but still loud in the enclosed space. 3 more holes appeared in the energy field. 3 more impacts cratered the barrier behind it. Rixtal was scanning frantically now. The shield isn't adapting. It can't adapt. There's nothing to adapt to. The projectiles are just passing through the energy matrix like it's not even there. A voice called out from the crowd. "What about personal shields? Body armor?" Day One looked at Velthar. The Admiral nodded grimly. A soldier was summoned from the Confederation security forces. He was Thalen, one of the most common species in the galaxy. He looked almost human except for the gray skin and the extra set of eyes on his forehead. He wore standard Confederation combat armor, sleek and dark, with an energy shield generator on his belt. The soldier stood on the demonstration floor, clearly nervous. Hana held up the rifle. "The rounds are rubber," she announced, showing the magazine to the crowd. "Non-lethal training ammunition. They'll hurt if they hit, but they won't cause serious injury. The Thailand soldier activated his personal shield. A faint shimmer surrounded his body, barely visible. This shield was smaller and weaker than the Type Fu, designed to stop energy pistol shots and blade weapons. Hana aimed at the soldier's chest and fired once. The rubber bullet went through the shield and hit the soldier's armor with a solid thump. The impact knocked him back a step. He looked down at his chest at the spot where the bullet had hit, then up at the crowd with wide eyes. "I felt that," he said, his voice amplified across the hall. "Through the shield. Through my armor. I felt it." More shouting from the crowd. Day One heard the translation devices struggling to keep up. "What about ship shields? Ground vehicles? Battle stations?" Velthar raised his arms again. Silence. When the hall quieted, he turned to Day One. "Captain, I need a straight answer. Do you believe your weapons could penetrate the shields on our warships?" Day One met the Admiral's eyes. "I don't know, Admiral. We've never tested them against your ship shields. But if they work on the same principle as your personal shields and your station shields..." He paused. "Then yes, I believe they would." The silence that followed was absolute. Day One could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear Sung Min breathing beside the machine gun. He could hear the faint hum of the station's life support systems. Then someone in the crowd said, "The Vraxians." The name spread through the hall like fire. "The Vraxians use the same shield technology we do. They're our enemies. If humans can pierce our shields, the Vraxians could do it too. If they learn about kinetic weapons." Velthar slammed one of his fists on the railing. The boom echoed through the hall. "Everyone out. Clear the observation hall. Council members and the human delegation remain. Everyone else out now." The aliens filed out quickly, their voices a buzz of worried conversation. Soon only the council members remained in their high seats and the human team on the demonstration floor. Envoy Thalric spoke first. "This changes everything. Our entire defensive doctrine is based on energy shields," another council member said. She was Porian with green crystalline skin that refracted light. "Every ship, every station, every settlement. We're all vulnerable to primitive weapons," someone else added bitterly. "They're not primitive," Rixtal said quietly. He was still examining the shield, his scanners covering every inch. "They're different. We've been fighting with energy weapons for so long that we designed everything to counter energy weapons. We forgot that there were other ways to kill." Velthar descended from his high seat. He walked to the demonstration floor slowly, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller now. He stood in front of Day One. "How many weapons like this does Earth have?" he asked. "Billions," Day One replied honestly. "Rifles, machine guns, artillery pieces, missiles, bombs. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got very good at it." Velthar looked at the M2 Browning. "And this weapon. You said it's 400 years old?" 412 years, Hana corrected. "The design has barely changed. It works too well to fix." The Admiral reached out with one hand, hesitated, then touched the barrel. It was still hot. He pulled his hand back quickly. "We've been in space for over 5,000 years, he said softly. "We thought we knew everything about warfare. We thought we were." The emergency council chamber was smaller than the observation hall, but no less impressive. The walls were made of transparent material that showed the stars outside. Earth hung in the distance, a blue and white marble against the black. Day One could see the outlines of continents on the daytime side. Somewhere down there, billions of humans went about their lives, unaware that their entire species' future was being decided in orbit above them. The council sat in a curved row facing the human delegation. Velthar occupied the center position again, but his posture had changed. He no longer lounged with casual superiority. He sat forward, attentive, his golden eyes fixed on the humans with sharp intensity. Major Ji-Won Choi had joined them. She'd arrived on a transport an hour ago, brought up from Earth as soon as word of the demonstration reached the diplomatic teams below. She was older than Day One, with gray streaking her black hair and the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in military planning. She carried herself with quiet confidence, and she'd brought data with her. "Lots of data. Let me make sure I understand correctly," said High Counselor Varthan. He was the leader of the council, an ancient Vorian whose crystalline body glowed with soft green light. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "Your entire military infrastructure is based on kinetic weapons?" "Primarily, yes," Ji-Won replied. She stood while the others sat. using the room's holographic display to show images. We use chemical explosives to propel projectiles, everything from small arms up to artillery that can hit targets 100 kilometers away. We also have missiles, bombs, and orbital strike platforms. A hologram appeared in the air, showing a human battleship design. It was bulky and angular compared to the sleek Confederation vessels, covered in gun emplacements and missile tubes. This is one of our proposed warship designs, Jiwan continued. We haven't built it yet. We only achieved faster-than-light travel 6 months ago, so we're still adapting our military technology for space combat. But as you can see, the primary weapons are railguns and missile batteries. Railguns? Asked Science Officer Kelvin. He was a small creature, barely a meter tall, covered in white fur with large black eyes. But everyone in the Confederation knew that Kelvin was brilliant. His species had developed most of the energy shield technology currently in use. Those are electromagnetic accelerators, yes? You use magnets to throw projectiles? Correct, Jiwan said. We can accelerate projectiles to extremely high velocities, much faster than chemical propulsion. We've tested railguns that can fire projectiles at over 30 kilometers per second. Kelvan's fur rippled with agitation. At that speed, the kinetic energy alone. He paused, calculating. A 1 kilogram projectile at 30 kilometers per second would hit with the force of over 400 megajoules. That's equivalent to a small nuclear explosion. Yes, G1 said simply. The council chamber fell silent. Daewon watched their faces. The aliens weren't laughing now. They weren't condescending. They were afraid. Envoy Thalrix leaned forward. And your shields? What protection do humans use against such weapons? We don't have energy shields, Daewon said. We use physical armor. Thick metal plates, ceramic composites, reactive materials that deflect or absorb impacts. It's heavy and it has limitations, but it works against kinetic weapons. Because you've been fighting each other with kinetic weapons, Velthar said quietly. For how long? G1 pulled up another hologram. It showed a timeline of human history marked with wars. There were hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. The marks were so dense in some periods that they blurred together into solid lines. We've had organized warfare for at least 10,000 years, G1 said. We've been using gunpowder weapons for about 1,000 years, modern automatic weapons for over 500 years, nuclear weapons for almost 300 years. We learned to kill each other very efficiently. 300 years of nuclear weapons, Varthan repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. And you still exist? We came close to destroying ourselves a few times, G1 admitted. But we survived. We learned. We're still learning. A council member Daewon didn't recognize spoke up. She was tall and thin with blue skin and no visible mouth. Her voice came from a translator device on her chest. So when you showed us your old machine gun, you were actually showing us relatively primitive technology. You have much more powerful weapons. Yes, Daewon confirmed. Show us, Velthar commanded. G1 pulled up more holograms, artillery pieces that could level buildings, missiles that could track targets across continents, aircraft that could rain destruction from the sky, tanks covered in thick armor and bristling with guns, nuclear warheads that could vaporize cities. And then she showed them the orbital weapons, kinetic bombardment systems that could drop tungsten rods from space, hitting with the force of tactical nukes without any radiation, satellite networks that could coordinate strikes across an entire planet, autonomous drones that could hunt targets without human input. These are the weapons we use against each other, G1 said, in our wars, against other humans. We've been perfecting them for centuries. The council members looked at each other. Daewon could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Humanity wasn't just a primitive species with accidentally effective weapons. Humanity was a species that had turned warfare into a science, refining it over thousands of years of continuous conflict. How many ships does Earth have? Asked Commander Rixtel. None, G1 replied. Not real warships. We have the transport shuttles that brought us here, and a few exploration vessels. We've been focused on developing faster-than-light travel and establishing contact with the Confederation. Military shipbuilding is still in the planning stages. But when you do build ships, Rixtal pressed, they'll be armed with these kinetic weapons? That's the plan, yes. Rixtal turned to Velthar. Admiral, we need to run simulations immediately. If these weapons can penetrate our shields the way they demonstrated today, then our entire fleet is vulnerable. Every station, every settlement. The Vraxians could learn about this technology. They could develop their own kinetic weapons. The Vraxians, Varthan said, and the name seemed to suck the energy from the room. Yes, that's the real problem, isn't it? Daewon had read about the Vraxians in the briefing materials. They were the Confederation's primary enemy, a rival power that controlled a large section of space on the far side of the galaxy. The two powers had been in a Cold War for over 1,000 years, with occasional hot conflicts erupting on border worlds. Both sides used energy weapons. Both sides used energy shields. It was a stalemate, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. Until now, potentially. If the Vraxians discover that kinetic weapons can bypass our shields, Thalric said slowly, they'll develop them immediately. They could attack before we're ready. We could develop them first, another council member suggested. Use the humans' technology to gain an advantage. Or the humans could give the technology to the Vraxians, someone else said, and suddenly all eyes were on Daewon. He felt the weight of those stares. Hundreds of years of evolution in dozens of different species, all focused on him with suspicion. We haven't had any contact with the Vraxians, Daewon said carefully. We barely know you exist. We certainly aren't going to sell weapons to your enemies. Can you prove that? The question came from a council member in the back, hidden in shadows. Can you prove you won't steal our technology and leave us defenseless? Daewon shot back. We're having this conversation because you asked us to demonstrate our weapons. We showed you honestly what we had. If you see that as a threat, that's not our fault. It is a threat, though, Velthar said. His voice wasn't angry, just tired. You must understand that, Captain. You've shown us that our entire military doctrine has a fatal flaw. Every citizen of the Confederation is now potentially vulnerable to any species that develops kinetic weapons, including humanity. We're not your enemies, Hana said. She'd been quiet until now, but her voice was firm. We came here looking for allies, for friends, for a place in the galaxy. We're not looking to start a war. Wars don't always start because people want them, Varthan said quietly. Sometimes they start because people are afraid. And right now, Captain, the Council is very afraid. Ji-Wan stepped forward. Then let's talk about solutions instead of threats. You're afraid we'll attack you, or give our weapons to your enemies. We're afraid you'll see us as too dangerous to allow to exist. Neither outcome benefits anyone. What do you propose? Velthar asked. A partnership, Ji-Wan said. You have technology we need. Shields, faster-than-light drives, medical advances, energy weapons. We have weapons technology that could revolutionize your military. We trade, we share. We become allies instead of potential enemies. You want us to teach you how to build ships, Rixtal said, in exchange for teaching us how to kill more efficiently. I want us to teach each other how to survive, Ji-Wan corrected. Your shields don't work against kinetic weapons. Our armor doesn't work against energy weapons. But if we combine our knowledge, we could develop defenses that work against both. Shields that can stop physical projectiles, armor that can disperse energy. We'd both be safer. The alarm started 3 hours after the council had adjourned. Daewon was in his assigned quarters, trying to sleep in a bed designed for someone with a completely different body structure, when the sound cut through the station. It wasn't like any alarm he'd heard before. It was a deep, pulsing tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating through the walls and floor. He was on his feet instantly, pulling on his uniform. The lights in the room had changed from soft white to harsh red. Through the transparent wall, he could see other sections of the station doing the same. Red lights flickered across the massive structure like warning signals spreading through a nervous system. His communicator buzzed. Hana's voice came through, tense and alert. Sir, are you seeing this? I'm seeing red lights, Daewon replied, moving toward the door. What's happening? Turn on the room's display. Channel 17. Daewon activated the wall panel. A holographic display appeared, showing a view of space outside the station. At first, he didn't see anything unusual, just stars and the distant curve of Earth. Then he saw the ships. They were coming in fast, appearing out of faster-than-light travel in bursts of distorted space. 1 ship, 3 ships, 7 ships. They kept coming, more and more, until a fleet of 12 warships hung in space like birds of prey circling their target. The ships were angular and dark, covered in spikes and sharp edges. They looked nothing like the smooth, elegant vessels of the Confederation. These ships looked like they were built for one purpose only: to hurt things. Vraxians. Daewon whispered. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was Velthar's voice, booming and urgent. Captain Kim, report to the command center immediately. This is not a request, Daewon ran. The corridors of Nexus 7 were chaos. Aliens rushed in every direction. Some wore military uniforms and carried weapons. Others were civilians, scared and confused. Automated systems shouted warnings in dozens of languages. Emergency lights pulsed in the ceiling. Daewon found the command center near the heart of the station. It was a massive room filled with holographic displays and control stations. Dozens of Confederation officers worked frantically at their posts. At the center of it all stood Admiral Velthar, his forearms gesturing at multiple displays simultaneously. The human team was already there. Hana, Ji-won, and Sung-min stood together near the back of the room, staying out of the way but watching everything. Captain, Velthar acknowledged Daewon's arrival without looking away from the displays. Your timing is impeccable. We're about to die, and it's partially your fault. Sir, the Vraxians were monitoring our station, Velthar explained, pointing at a display that showed communication intercepts. They heard about your demonstration. They know about your weapons, and now they want them. A new hologram appeared, showing a Vraxian face. The alien was reptilian, with dark red scales and too many teeth. His eyes were yellow with horizontal pupils. When he spoke, his voice was rough and harsh. Confederation vessel Nexus 7, the Vraxian said. This is Warlord Kresh of the 3rd Battle Fleet. You have exactly 10 minutes to surrender the human delegation and all their weapons technology. If you comply, we will allow your personnel to evacuate. If you resist, we will destroy your station and take what we want from the debris. The transmission ended. Can we evacuate? Daewon asked. Not enough ships, Velthar replied grimly. We have transport shuttles, but not enough for everyone on the station. And the Vraxians would shoot them down anyway. They don't want witnesses. Can you fight them? 12 ships against our station defenses? Velthar gestured at another display showing tactical information. We might hold them off for an hour. Maybe 2. But they'll win eventually. They always do when they have numbers on their side. Then you should surrender us, Ji-won said quietly. Everyone in the command center turned to look at her. Major, no, Daewon started, but Ji-won held up a hand. Think about it, she said. They want our technology. If we surrender, they get it. But at least everyone else on this station survives. You think they'll honor their word? Velthar laughed bitterly. The Vraxians? They'll take your weapons, and then destroy the station anyway, so nobody can report what happened. That's their way. So we're all going to die, Hana said flatly. Probably, Velthar agreed. He looked at Daewon. I'm sorry, Captain. I know you came here in peace, but you showed us something that changed the balance of power in the galaxy, and now everyone wants it, including our enemies. Daewon looked at the tactical display. 12 Vraxian warships. The station had defensive turrets and shields, but Velthar was right. The numbers weren't in their favor. An idea formed in his mind. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was probably suicidal. It was also the only chance they had. Admiral, Daewon said slowly, do you still have our weapons crates? In the armory, yes, why? Because the Vraxians are making the same mistake you did, Daewon said. They think energy shields will protect them. Velthar's golden eyes widened. You want to fight? 4 humans against 12 warships. Not against the ships, Daewon said. Against their boarding parties. They're going to have to send troops onto the station to take us. That's where we fight. They'll send hundreds of soldiers, Velthar protested. We have a heavy machine gun and enough ammunition to kill thousands, Daewon replied. He looked at his team. If you're willing, Sung-min nodded immediately. Madus hasn't let me down yet. Hana checked her sidearm. I'm in, Ji-won smiled grimly. I didn't come all the way to space just to surrender to lizards. Velthar studied them for a long moment. Then he turned to his officers. Get those weapons to the main docking bay. Set up defensive positions, and someone tell the Vraxians we're refusing their offer. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. The humans rushed to the armory, grabbed their equipment, and sprinted to the main docking bay. It was a cavernous space large enough to hold multiple transport ships. Right now it was empty except for a few maintenance vehicles. They'll breach here, Velthar said, pointing to the main doors. Standard boarding procedure. They'll cut through with plasma torches, then flood in with shock troops. Usually works because most species can't hold a defensive position against superior numbers. Most species don't have Sung-min. Daewon said. They set up the M2 Browning facing the main doors. With a clear field of fire across the entire bay, Sungmin positioned it carefully, testing angles and adjusting the tripod. He loaded the ammunition belt with practiced ease. Hana and Daewon took flanking positions behind maintenance vehicles, using them as cover. They had their rifles and extra magazines. Ji-won stayed back near the interior door with a pistol, ready to help coordinate or provide covering fire. Private Bo-ra Han arrived with a medical kit. She was young, barely 20, a combat medic who'd been training with the team on Earth. She looked scared but determined. "I'm not letting you do this alone," she said simply. Daewon wanted to send her away. She was so young, but they needed a medic and they needed every gun they could get. "Stay behind cover," he told her. "Only shoot if you have to." Through the command center's communication link, they could hear the Vraxians broadcasting again. "Confederation Station, you have made a foolish choice. Prepare to be boarded." "Here they come." Velthar's voice crackled through the speakers. The main doors glowed red as plasma cutters started working on them from the outside. The heat was intense even from across the bay. Molten metal dripped onto the floor like glowing rain. Daewon's heart pounded. This was it. This was really happening. 4 humans and a medic against an unknown number of alien shock troops. He checked his rifle one more time. The weight of it was comforting, familiar. How many times had he held this weapon in training? In combat against other humans? Now he was going to use it against aliens. The doors blew inward with a tremendous crash. Smoke and heat flooded into the bay. Through the haze, Daewon could see shapes moving. Large shapes. Dozens of them. The Vraxian shock troops poured through the breach. They were bigger than Daewon expected, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark armor that gleamed in the bay's lights. Their personal shields shimmered around them, the same energy barriers that the Confederation used. They carried plasma rifles that glowed with contained fury. They charged forward with confidence, with certainty, with the knowledge that no species could stand against them. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Now," Daewon shouted. Sungmin pressed the trigger. The M2 Browning roared to life. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The muzzle flash lit up the bay like a strobe light. Spent shells rained onto the floor in a metallic waterfall. The bullets tore through the Vraxian shields like tissue paper. The first rank of soldiers went down immediately, their shields providing no protection at all against the kinetic rounds. The heavy bullets punched through shields, through armor, through flesh and bone. The Vraxians fell in heaps, their confidence shattered along with their bodies. The second rank tried to scatter, but they were packed too tightly in the breach. More fell. Their plasma rifles discharged wildly as dying hands spasmed on triggers. Energy bolts splashed against the walls and ceiling. The cleanup took 6 hours. Confederation. Security teams removed the bodies from the docking bay while medical personnel treated the few injured station workers who'd been caught in crossfire from the Vraxian plasma weapons. Amazingly, there were no fatalities among the defenders. The humans had held their position perfectly, and the battle had been so one-sided that the Vraxians never got close enough to threaten anyone behind the defensive line. Daewon sat in a quiet corner of the station's medical wing, watching Bo-ra receive treatment for shock. She hadn't been injured physically, but seeing 43 soldiers die in less than 90 seconds had overwhelmed her. The station's medical staff gave her something to calm her nerves and told her to rest. "She'll be fine," Ji-won said, sitting down next to Daewon. "First combat is always hard. Even when you win. Especially when you win like that." "We killed them all," Daewon said quietly. 43 soldiers. They probably had families, lives, dreams, and we just cut them down. They came here to kill us, Ji-won reminded him gently. To take our technology by force. To destroy the station and everyone on it. You gave them a choice. They chose wrong. Daewon knew she was right. But knowing didn't make the weight any lighter. Hana approached, carrying a datapad. "Admiral wants to see us in the council chamber. All of us, including Bo-ra, when she's ready." "What for?" "Didn't say. But he sounded different. Respectful, maybe." They gathered their team and headed to the council chamber. The station felt different now. As they walked through the corridors, aliens stopped to stare at them. Some nodded respectfully. Others moved out of their way. A few young aliens whispered to each other and pointed. "We're famous," Sungmin observed dryly. "Or infamous," Hana added. The council chamber was packed. Every seat was filled, and more aliens stood along the walls. The entire Confederation Council sat in their usual positions, but they weren't alone. Dozens of military officers in various uniforms lined the room. Day One recognized the insignia of different fleets and defense forces. At the center of it all stood Admiral Velthar. He looked tired, his scales dulled and his posture slightly slumped. But when he saw the humans enter, he straightened and gestured for them to approach. Captain Kim, Major Choi, Lieutenant Park, Corporal Lee, Private Han. He acknowledged each of them formally. The Confederation Council recognizes your defense of Station Nexus 7. You saved countless lives today. Polite applause rippled through the chamber. It sounded strange coming from so many different species, each clapping or clicking or humming in their own way. Velthar raised a hand for silence. But we're not here just to thank you. We're here because what happened today changes everything. Again. High Counselor Varthan stood. His crystalline body caught the light, sending green reflections across the walls. The Vraxian fleet that attacked this station has retreated to their territory. Our intelligence reports that they lost 43 soldiers and suffered no casualties among our defenders. This has caused significant alarm in Vraxian space. They're scared, another council member added. For the first time in 1,000 years, they're genuinely afraid of us. Or rather, they're afraid of you. The balance of power has shifted, Varthan continued. Not because of our actions, but because of yours. Because you showed us that our entire defensive doctrine has a fatal weakness, and because you showed the Vraxians the same thing. Envoy Thalric spoke up from his seat. Our intelligence indicates that the Vraxians are already attempting to develop kinetic weapons of their own. They're studying primitive species, looking for examples of projectile technology. They're terrified of being left behind. So is everyone else, Velthar said grimly. He activated a holographic display showing a star map. Dozens of regions lit up in different colors. In the past 6 hours, we've received communications from 17 different species and 4 independent governments. They all want the same thing: information about kinetic weapons, access to human technology, protection against this new threat. The galaxy is in chaos, Varthan said. All because of a 400-year-old machine gun. The room fell silent. Day One felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him again. This time, though, the looks weren't suspicious or afraid. They were expectant, waiting. What do you want from us? G1 asked finally. Varthan descended from his high seat and approached the humans directly. For an ancient being made of living crystal, he moved with surprising grace. We want an alliance. A real one. Not the casual trade relationship we might have offered before. We want humanity as a full member of the Confederation, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. You want our weapons, Day One said bluntly. We want your knowledge, Varthan corrected. Yes, we want to learn about kinetic weapons. But we also want to teach you shield technology, faster-than-light drives, medical advances, energy weapons, agricultural systems, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. Everything we've learned in 5,000 years of space exploration. We want to share it with you. Why? Hana asked. Yesterday you thought we were primitives. Now you want to share everything? Because yesterday we were fools, Velthar said simply. We assumed that technological advancement moved in only one direction. We thought energy weapons were the pinnacle of warfare. We never considered that different paths might lead to different solutions. He looked at the M2 Browning, which had been brought to the chamber and now sat on a display platform. You took a different path, and your path found an answer to a problem we didn't even know we had. Commander Rixtal stepped forward. I've spent the last several hours analyzing your weapons and our shields. The science is fascinating. Energy shields work by creating a field that disperses and neutralizes incoming energy. They're incredibly effective against plasma, lasers, particle beams, anything that relies on energy transfer. But they have almost no effect on solid matter moving at high velocity. The kinetic energy just passes through the field. So our shields are useless, someone in the crowd said bitterly. Not useless, Rixtal corrected. Just incomplete. If we can develop shields that stop both energy and kinetic attacks, we'll be far better protected than we are now. But we need human expertise to do that. We need to understand how kinetic weapons work, what their limitations are, how to defend against them. And in exchange? Jiwan asked. In exchange, we help you build a real space fleet, Velthar said. Not experimental shuttles. Real warships. Hundreds of them. Thousands, eventually. With human weapons and Confederation drives and shields. Ships that can defend Earth and help protect the Confederation. You want us to join your military? Day-One said. We want you to lead it, Var then corrected. The Confederation military has been operating under the same doctrine for thousands of years. We need fresh perspectives, new ideas. We need people who understand warfare in ways we've forgotten. A door at the back of the chamber opened. A human walked in, flanked by Confederation guards. He was older than anyone on Day-One's team, with white hair and a lined face. He wore a general's uniform, crisp and decorated with medals. General Park, Jiwan said, surprised. I didn't know you were coming. General Taeyang Park smiled slightly. I arrived an hour ago with Ambassador Nam and a full diplomatic delegation. Earth's government wanted senior officials here after the Vraxian attack. He walked to stand beside the team. I've been briefed on everything. The demonstration, the council meetings, the battle. I've also been negotiating with the Confederation Council. Negotiating what? Day-One asked. Terms, Ambassador Hyunwoo Nam said, entering behind the general. He was a distinguished-looking man in formal diplomatic robes. Terms for Earth's entry into the Confederation. Terms for technology exchange. Terms for military cooperation. Terms for trade agreements. It's been a busy hour, and? Jiwan prompted. Nam smiled. And we've reached an agreement. Pending approval from Earth's government, of course, but I'm authorized to accept preliminary terms. He pulled out a data pad and began reading. Earth will become a full member of the Confederation with voting rights on the Council. We'll receive complete access to Confederation technology, including faster-than-light drives, shielding systems, and medical advances. In exchange, we'll share our knowledge of kinetic weapons and assist in developing new defensive systems. There's more, General Park added. The Confederation is creating a new military division, the Kinetic Warfare Division. They want human advisors to lead it. They want us to help redesign their entire military doctrine. They want you specifically, Velthar said, looking at Day-One. You and your team. You're being promoted, Captain, or rather Major Kim, effective immediately. You'll be the human liaison to the Confederation Military Command. Day-One stared at him. Sir, I'm just an infantry officer. I'm not qualified to redesign an entire galactic military. You held off 12 warships with 4 soldiers and a machine gun, Velthar said flatly. You're the most qualified person in the galaxy. What about our team? Hana asked. Lieutenant Park, you're now a senior weapons specialist, Var then said. You'll be training Confederation engineers on kinetic weapon design. Corporal Lee, you're being promoted to sergeant and assigned to lead, Park said. You're coming with me. We're establishing.